music history is the second part of this course, GE6, the music part. So the history of music can be divided into separate periods of time. Each can be identified by its own particular style. So basically, each period has its own fingerprint. Like each person has a different personality. So each period also has its differences. So what we'll do is we will tackle each period. We will see what the musical styles of that period has and who the famous composers are. So it is important to discuss this because without this Western music history, we wouldn't be able to appreciate what we have now, what we listen to now. Okay, so our first period is the Middle Ages. So it is divided into two. So the first half of the millennium was from 500 to 1000, often referred to as Dark Ages. So here Christianity triumphed over paganism throughout Europe. And the two centers of power here were church and the state. So culture here was shaped by the monasteries, therefore a lot of the music in this period were mostly religious. The second part of the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages was from 1000 to 1400, which they witnessed building of cathedrals and founding of universities throughout Europe. So if you've noticed, America is called the New World and Europe is the old world. So most of the things in history can be found in Europe. And some of the buildings in the United States are based off of how they built their buildings in the old world before, right? So please take note of the slides. Make sure you jot down whatever is important. So in the Middle Ages, we have what we call the Gregorian chant. So this is one of the famous musical styles in that period. And it consists of one melody. And we've discussed this already. And it is called monophonic. It doesn't have any harmony, therefore it's just one melody. It is generally free from regular accent. So there's no 4/4, there's no 3/4 or 6/8 or any time signature. For that matter, it's just generally free. Okay, so these chants are categorized into three. You have syllabic, pneumatic, and melismatic. Syllabic chants are primarily one syllable. Okay, and pneumatic, you have 2 or 3 notes per syllable, and melismatic, you have multiple syllables are sung in a long series of notes. So these three categories are very much different from each other, and I will let you hear a sample of a Gregorian chant later. Gregorian chant was named that way because of Pope Gregory the Great. And he was the one who compiled these chants. Because remember, in this period, religious music was really prominent, right? So an example of a Gregorian chant is Dies Irae, which I will let you hear later. I will attach a link for that. Then another form of music is an organum. Okay, an organum is kind of an opposite of the Gregorian chant because the Gregorian chant was monophonic, just one melody, while the organum has many melodies sounding together. So there's harmony, right? Polyphonic. What is here? So you have the second voice, so there's harmony, and usually an interval of a fifth or a fourth above. So an example of this would be Alleluia Nativitas, which I will let you hear in a bit. So for their secular music, now we're done with the sacred part. They still had secular music. And we have estampi and troubadours. So estampi was used for their medieval court life. So it was an accompaniment for their dancing, dinner, and after dinner entertainment. So it was kind of the version today. The version we have is when we go out to dinner and we have a person playing the piano on the side, or if you go to hayahay, there's a band while you're eating, right? So that was their version before, the estampi. The troubadours was, these are songs that were sung by wandering musicians or those who were playing on the street. So if you've seen Hunchback of Notre Dame, Esmeralda can be a part of the troubadours. And I think Esmeralda also danced and played instruments.